Let's just jump right in. For so many businesses out there, the biggest challenge isn't about working harder, it's about a lack of clarity. We all know work is getting done, somehow, but how exactly? And, more importantly, could it be done a whole lot better? That's the journey we're going to go on today. Moving from this tangled, invisible web of processes to something clear, intelligent, and automated.
This quote from ClickUp, it just hits home, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling of flying blind. So often our workflows aren't written down in some neat manual. Nope. They live in scattered email threads, endless chat messages, and of course, in the heads of a few key people. So when something goes wrong, and it always does, good luck trying to figure out where the breakdown happened.
And just to show you how wild this can get without us even noticing, look at this number, 204. That was the actual number of steps in one single workflow at one company before they took the time to map it out. Just try to picture that for a second. A single process that bounces back and forth between 8 different departments. It's just a recipe for disaster. So yeah, this is what we're talking about when we say operating in the dark. Let's really dig into the true cost of getting tangled up in these ridiculously complex, undocumented processes. But it is not all doom and gloom. Not at all. The great news is we can absolutely drag all this hidden knowledge out into the open. And the fix? It starts with one fundamental step. We've got to create a map. So what is a knowledge map really? Well, APQC puts it perfectly. It's a visual way to see your company's brain power. I mean, think about it like this. You would never try to drive across the country without a map, right? A knowledge map does the exact same thing for your business. It shows you the terrain, it points out the fastest highways, and, most importantly, it shows you where all the potholes and traffic jams are. And getting started is actually way simpler than you might think. APQ lays out this super clear 4-step guide. First, you figure out what knowledge is most critical. Then you draft the map by, actually talking to the experts, the people doing the work. Then you review it with everyone involved. And then, and this is the most important part, you have to act on it. And here's a really key point. This is not about documenting every single tiny little detail. The goal is to find what some experts call knowledge nuggets, those small, powerful, distilled bits of wisdom. It's about capturing real insight, not just a mountain of raw data. Okay, so once you know what you're looking for, how do you actually go about, capturing it all? Well, you're going to need the right tools. So let's take a look at the modern toolkit for turning those knowledge nuggets into a map that's actually clear and useful. Now, the tool landscape can feel a little bit overwhelming, but it really breaks down into a few main categories. You've got your visual collaboration tools like Miro, which are awesome for just brainstorming and getting ideas out. Then you have more technical, formal tools like Visio, which use specific notations like BPMN, great for compliance stuff. And then there are the all-in-one platforms like ClickUp, which try to connect your maps to your actual live work. The right tool really depends on what you're trying to achieve. But just choosing a tool kicks off this really fascinating debate. See, on one side, you have these super technical tools that use formal systems, like BPMN. That stands for Business Process Model and Notation. And as this Reddit user points out, they're incredibly precise, but they work best when you have a small, focused group of experts. You get too many cooks in that kitchen and it all just falls apart. And here is the other side of that exact same coin, summed up perfectly. This user says, look, I never use BPMN because the people I work with, they just don't get it. And that's the ultimate reality check, isn't it? The entire point is for people to understand the map. A technically perfect diagram that nobody can read is, well, it's totally useless. This whole conversation brings us to a huge leap forward. What if the map wasn't just a static picture on a screen? What if it could actually take action by itself? Well, this is where we step into the future, a future that is agentic. So what in the world does agentic even mean? Well, agentic AI is a system that moves way beyond just analyzing things. It doesn't just describe a process, it actively executes the process. It can make decisions, automate tasks, and really drive towards a specific goal. It's a massive shift from a passive document to an active participant. Okay, here's the absolute simplest way to think about it. A traditional process map, that's a paper map. It shows you the route, you fold it up, you put it in your glove box. Agentic AI is a live, rerouting GPS. It doesn't just know the route,
It sees the traffic jam ahead, it finds a shortcut, and, in some cases, it can even drive the car for you. This doesn't just document how we work, it fundamentally changes how we work. And hey, this isn't some science fiction movie. Check out these real-world examples from a company called Decider. In the restaurant business, an AI is predicting when to restock based on sales data, the weather, even if there's a big sports game in town. In recruiting, it's automating the painful screening process so recruiters can focus on, people. And in education, it can flag students who are falling behind and suggest ways to help them. This is happening right now.
Of course, anytime we start talking about this level of automation and power, we have to talk about safety and ethics. With great power comes, well, you know the rest. We need great responsibility. So how do we build the guardrails to make sure this AI is responsible?
Well, governments are already putting out some really clear frameworks, like this one from New Zealand. It's about things like governance and accountability, knowing who's ultimately responsible. It's about making sure your data is legal and ethical. It's about being transparent. And maybe most critically, it's about always keeping a human in the loop, especially when the stakes are high. It's all about building trust directly into the system.
And this really boils down to a critical question that every single organization needs to be asking itself right now. Is your AI system built on a solid foundation of fair, legal, and ethical data? Because at the end of the day, an agentic system is only as good and only as trustworthy as the data that it was trained on. All right, let's bring this all home and make that final connection, from map to action. We've gone on quite a journey here, from a completely tangled, invisible process to a crystal clear map, and from that map to an intelligent agent that can act on its own. And this, right here, is the core takeaway. The experts at APQC say it best: act on the map. A process map isn't some historical document that you create and then file away in a drawer to collect dust. No way. It's a living tool. It is your blueprint for change, and now it's your launchpad for automation. Which leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Your organization might have a process map somewhere, but is it just a relic, a snapshot of the past? Or is it a dynamic guide, one that's actively leading you into a more efficient, more intelligent, and more automated future?